Join me today on the Gridiron Gallery podcast. I have a special guest and a colleague and partner at XFL Newsroom, along with partnerships that he has with Unwrapped Sports. We have the maniac of the XFL community himself, XFL Jim, joining us on the show. You know, the glorious XFL Jim that brings us so much eccentric content on one of the best, if not the greatest, spring league out there. Jim, how are things on your end, first off? Secondly, how's the garage these days?
First off, it is the best spring league on the planet in history.
Absolutely.
That's not a fucking debate. Not having it. The garage is great. 2020 was a shit show for everybody, but it was especially a shit show for the garage. Almost got fired from work in March last year when the XFL said it was suspending its season. I threw a chair in frustration, and I think I almost broke a table. My boss was very upset with me.
Wow.
But 2021, I've been saying it since January. This is the year of the garage, and everything I've touched so far has been turning to gold. Unwrapped Sports is getting bigger than ever. XFL Newsroom is on the up and up. Sports Gambling Podcast, love those guys. They just got a new office. Better Than Vegas, the website I do all my weird fucking gambling stuff on, is getting bigger every time. This is a great fucking year. 2021 is my year. It's our year.
You've got me jacked up for 2021. I got plans as well, but man, you are making some moves, it sounds like, and I'm happy for you. You know, the garage lifestyle, I love it. You know, living fast, living free, and it brings the energy every single time, and we appreciate that in the community. I'm bringing you on today. We're not talking the greatest spring league. We're talking one that's trying to kind of be that. It's a kind of, opinions are mixed. The spring league, as I hinted by accidentally saying it in the title, it can get confusing, but the spring league, you know, the professional developmental football league, as it's stated on their website, has started their 2021 season roughly less than a half year after its 2020 season, which had a unique ending to it. If you're saying unique as a word for kind of half car crash, half, well, we got it done, and, you know, had a decent championship game. You know, before we even get into this, so they're already 1 week in, but more and more as we've gotten into this first week, the spring league kind of has, I would say, in my opinion, a mixed reputation. It has the potential, that's a word that's used often. It has the potential to be something bigger, but it keeps holding itself back, and there are some reasons for that. You know, first, Jim, you know, just to put it out there, what are your thoughts on the spring league? Like, how do you relate to it as a alternative football league?
I have followed the spring league for a few years now. I know it started, like, it's been going on for a hot minute.
Right, it's fifth year.
Camp and everything like that. I've been following it for a little bit. I kind of just always viewed it as like, oh, that's kind of a fun thing. Before it was on any like TV or anything like that, I always viewed it. It's just developmental. There's names that I'll recognize and I'll be like, oh, that's really cool. And anything that helps the players get a shot at the NFL or CFL or anything bigger, I'm always a fan of. And then 2020, I was very excited that it was going to be on TV. You got to see a lot of XFL guys that used to be that were in the XFL that were participating in the spring league. Like, oh, this is pretty cool. They're showing the development, and more football is usually better. I don't like, and I know this is like strictly a preference, I don't like that they really stick with the developmental aspect of it, because it really just, like, the players pay to participate, and it just kind of, it really sets it down as like a second tier league. Like, I'll try and pretend to be someone who's a normal person and view the XFL as like a second tier NFL.
Sure.
The XFL, like, more normal people are like, well, this league, it's not the NFL, obviously. They do something different. They have different rules. They're not trying to be the NFL. They're not trying to do anything like that. And they're trying to be themselves. They're not just trying to funnel players to the NFL. They're not trying to like do anything like that. They're trying to give players an opportunity. Like, you're getting paid now. You're competing in this league. The opportunity just kind of like creates itself for the players there. The spring league is just, you come in here, you do this, we will get you film, and like we're trying to promote you to be an NFL player. It cements it as like a minor league. And that, just on top of the players having to pay, like, the players don't even get paid usually to participate, just kind of like it. it's in a weird state of fluctuation, especially now when it's like on major TV.
Yeah, I think the Fox broadcast is what's now making it this funny area. If we weren't seeing us on television, I think we would still refer to it as what you're talking about. It's a fun experiment, on the side. You can look at it and be like, oh, this is kind of cool. It's a camp. Like, that's the thing. But now, Fox has a deal. This is the second year they're doing it. It already is reported they're going to have another year next year with apparently bigger plans. Brian Woods hinted that to Fox 59 Indianapolis, that there's going to be bigger plans in the works that we'll be hearing at the end of the year. Merch apparently is coming by the end of the year, so, okay, we have TV, we have merch, we have betting data that's actually being brought. Last year, that was a deal that they made. I forget the site that they made a deal for, but there's betting data for the league that is being kind of harvested right now for these games.
On a side of that, I have not been able to find any place to place actual wagers on these games.
Right. I cannot either, but I can confirm that they did make a deal with I'm losing it right now off the tip of my tongue, but they did make a deal back in October of last year to actually have a data mining company, or at least a betting data mining company, take their data. So all the components for a league that wants to do something more are kind of there. Woods has hinted that they want to be end goal minor league to the NFL. But, okay, if you can't do that, and the NFL has kind of poo-pooed the idea of minor leagues ever since they bailed on NFL Europe, what's your next option? So I'm middle ground like you, where I'm just like, okay, you got the TV, but, you're still not paying everyone. You're paying some people, which was learned last year thanks to Mr. Kent Shelby. Not everyone. So what? I mean,
and then they also kind of handicap themselves in the spot where it's hard to get hardcore fans, because you can be a fan of the teams, but you don't really get a connection with any of the rosters because the roster turnover is so crazy every season.
Right. I mean that's another thing that, like last year, it's more of a logo. So now we have two new, of course, teams, the Linemen and of course the Sea Lions. And for those that are tuning in, don't know what the Spring League is initially, I'll give you the rundown of the other teams. So you have the Linemen, the Sea Lions, you have the Alphas, the Aviators, the Conquerors, the Jousters, the Generals, and the Blues. And this year they split them into two hubs. So the North Hub, where I'm living in Indianapolis, is at Lucas Oil Stadium, which has and is hosting the Alphas, Aviators, Conquerors, and Linemen. And the Southern Hub, which is in Houston at Rice University, that one has the Sea Lions, Blues, Generals, and Jousters. Only Indianapolis is selling tickets, by the way. Rice does not sell tickets. They are not accepting them to the public. And when Indianapolis was shown last week on the screen, not many people bought them, but they also didn't advertise. That's a weird middle ground. It's a weird middle ground type of thing. We'll sell tickets, but we're not going to push the tickets. We're going to sell it on TV, but we're not going to push it hard for TV. Where do you go?
I feel like they get in their own way some of the time. Like, why are you? If you're not going to be pushing it and you're not going to try and advertise, why are you even putting yourself on TV and selling? I feel like it's costing you more money to go to these venues and like have access to them. Then like you could make some of that revenue back by promoting, and because we've seen it with both the XFL and the AAF in a bunch of markets. People will go watch football.
Sure.
Like, people even go watch arena football. Like, you can even get crowds of that size. Dude, arena football.
We can have a whole conversation on indoor and arena. I mean, good God, I need to have more arena talk. But I'm telling you, like, arena's great in its own right. Plenty of different variations. And I mean, 2022, if we have all those leagues, I've had this conversation with other people. There's 6 leagues now. Credit, the XFL status is up in the air completely, and I highly doubt 2022 is there. So sorry for both of us, but
I'm still crossing my fingers. I'm not going to give up hope until I see the hammer fall, and then I will go on a riot.
See, I'm glad you're the optimist, because I'm like, I don't mean to be pessimistic, but sometimes I get too much into reading the writing on the wall. But we need you, Jim.
Optimism. I'm insane, dude. I need it. If it doesn't come in 20, I have to believe it.
We need you to keep holding that thread. You know what? I'll do the double crosses here and this while I'm on here. By the way, for those watching on YouTube, that is, that this is a video and podcast, so keep that in mind. But I mean, for all of us out there, besides the XFL, expect the CFL next year. Supposedly Major League Football is going to play next year. I have no idea. The Freedom Football League is claiming it will. I have no idea. It's going to be upwards of like 5 leagues. And I mean, that's including ish with like the NAL, IFL, those two as well. So several different leagues you can go with. And the Spring League supposedly going to be back again, but bigger and better in its weird middle ground as ever.
It'll be interesting at the very least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'll give one more piece of thing here with the league, and then we'll move into just kind of talking last week's games. I understand that they've kind of slowly but surely trudged along and taking steps. I get that. I understand that they haven't operated with massive budgets. That's one of the things they crown themselves on. So, I get spending players, but at the same point, I'm also going to say I understand their money situation. But they also have Fox that could buy that minority stake that they claim they would have at any given time. So that money's going to change, you would think, at some point, if Fox keeps on giving the advertising, or at least eventually they'll allow more. So that's what the thought is. But just give them the other side of the argument, so it's not like I'm saying the Spring League's being cheap. It's like I get they have limited money, but eventually that can't be development and cheap all the time when you're on television. For those that want to know that and that are going to argue that side, that's why I bring it up. All right, Jim, let's jump into week one, or at least kind of going back and seeing how it'll go into week 2. So week 1's matchups in the Northern Division, the Alphas taking on the Aviators. That contest ended with the Alphas winning 23-9. Run heavy. It was the first contest of the week. You had a dual threat set of running backs that I say either could have been MVPs for this game, either in Brian Burt or Blake Morgan. Burt being the Fresno State product, Morgan the Wolford, both at 130 plus yards rushing. Excellent game, and they just ran away from it later on against the Aviators. That a little bit outgunned for this one. The second one, as we're going to recap the North here to start, you had that matchup being the Conquerors versus the Linemen. Closer matchup, was actually the best of the two that night, in my opinion. Kevin Anderson came to play, had an excellent outing himself at quarterback. Brian Willis his receivers just couldn't help him out. I mean, even Reese Horn, the expert AAF and XFL receiver, they just could not connect all night. And the Conquerors kind of eventually put the Linemen away 27-20. Jim, the Northern Division that night, obviously Burton, Morgan for the Alphas stand out. You got the Conquerors. Glanville's team looks a lot more stout than last year. What do you make of the first week, at least Northern wise?
It was expected for me for the teams to kind of like come out a little slow, because the Spring League they get limited practice beforehand, especially week 1. Aviators look fairly weak. Interesting on how they're going to develop and whatnot. The running backs, though, those 2 running backs that was the highlight of basically the whole weekend for me. Those guys, I'd give them double MVP of the week if it's up to me. Those just carrying the team, looking awesome while doing it. And on a side, for the other game, the Lineman Conquerors game, anytime I get to see Jerry Glanville on the sideline, I'm a happy man. He is he's like an idol to the garage. Absolutely. He's like, you look at someone like Jerry Glanville, he is like the life I would live if I was a football coach. Anytime he's joking, it's amazing. And I'm glad to see that game, it was competitive. It was, you can definitely say that this isn't great football at the moment. You can make that argument. It's still fun. It's fun, and I'm glad that the game was competitive. That's always my big worry, especially when these leagues start out, is will the games be competitive? And seeing that they were for the most part, like even the Aviators Alphas game, like that game was still like for the most part, at least for the first half and whatnot, it was competitive. And I'm very excited to see how this league develops, because the Spring League, even in the weird season last year, the games got, to me at least, the games got progressively better each week. And I'm excited because they're starting out pretty strong now. I'm excited to see where they'll be in like 2 or 3 weeks' time.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? That is a point that comes up, I think, with any of these leagues we start out, or when we're talking about the beginnings of these seasons, or especially with roster turnover, like the XFL. We can go back to that and relate this straight to the XFL conversation. Week 5, when we had to shut things down, we had the best game of the season. In my eyes, I'm gonna hold forever. Will be the Vipers going to LA and having that insane ending, that comeback that the Wildcats had in their home, in their house, down heavy. You had the Vipers ready to strike to take, at least tie the game, picked off at the end zone. I mean, and we were so close to overtime too. We were so
close. Week 5, that game, the Seattle Houston game, they were all every team was like coming to it's so frustrating every time I look back, because every team was starting to come to form. It's like, oh wow, this is the parity we want. This is like, all the teams are looking way better. New York was looking better. Tampa was looking good.
They were gems. Week 5 was a gem, man. I'm telling you, those are all rewatchable for the most part. Most of those games, at least the three we were mentioning there. You talk at least New York and Dallas. You talk Seattle, Houston, and at least LA and Tampa Bay. You have to watch those. If you're any
those two specifically, Seattle, Houston, LA, and Tampa, those games were like 2 of the top 5 in the entire season.
Those are the essentials, man. I'm going to throw in as the third one there, as we're talking this, the Battle of Texas, Houston versus Dallas. Got to throw that one in, or just another insane finish and back and forth type of contest, man. You can't make that stuff up. And that's what you're going to expect with the spring league. I'm with you on that. Is the longer this goes, the more comfortable these teams will get, the better the competition. And it's a 6-week season, so in theory, we get to the playoffs. There's no reason I see the spring league shutting anything down. I think they learned their lessons from last year, and they are on Fox, so you can't screw this up a second year in a row now that you're on, especially nationally broadcast television. And
I think with everything getting rolled out, protocols are a little bit easier to follow now. Kind of everyone sort of knows what to do for the most part. And I think doing it now instead of like last fall, when everyone was still trying to scramble for like college football and the NFL, like it's a little bit easier now.
Yeah, that does help a lot too. I mean, we are getting, more and more semblance of normal life. So, I mean, that obviously helps a lot. And, even that back then when they were doing this season, they tried doing a bubble. People were still learning some things. Unfortunately, the bubble didn't work out. Many other places have already stressed on what happened. I'm not going to tread too much ground back there because, it kind of ended ugly, but like they still did the championship. So at least they were able to get that in, but hey, we have the best football ahead is a point here. And I mean, there were signs of good football too in the second slate of games in the South Division, because you go into that, so the first 2 games were played on Thursday night on the North Division. It was a doubleheader. Then week 1 Friday, when you're watching on FS2, you saw the Sea Lions take on the Blues. Defensive slugfest, which generally defenses are better in these early goings for those that are, trying to get into the league. However, still some pretty solid performances. Again, the run game shines. Deshaun Waller of the Blues is going to be someone I'm going to be watching going forward, as well as DeAndre Francois, as long as his thumb's okay. And even if you want to look at the Sea Lions as well, I mean, if I'm going to look at quarterbacks, DeAndre Johnson's got my attention here from Texas Southern. I'm going to be he's a mobile guy. Obviously, receivers weren't connecting, but I mean, they got the talent there. And Ladarius Galloway, aka the big man on campus, definitely was another presence for this team. I mean, honestly, the Sea Lions, if we're talking folks, are the representation of the FCF in terms of the way that they're put together. I mean, you think about this. Here's the roster for those that are wondering with the FCF. So FCF wise, the Sea Lions have, and I quote, I'm going to go down this list with you, Jim. It's amazing the fact that they got all these FCF players onto one roster, and they just, it's going to look amazing in my opinion, is kind of cool. Because you look at the Lions, they have Kevontae Turpin, you got Andrew Jamil. I mean, Jamil had a little bit of impact. Again, still receivers gelling with the quarterback. That's going to get better, if we're looking at that. Going down the list too, you had Ladarius Galloway, who, again, another stellar runner in this league. Running backs are becoming kind of the first cream of the crop players, which would be expected in a pass heavy setting. The only game I could say that passers, besides maybe Kevin Anderson really shined was the final game of the weekend, was the Generals against the Jousters. Now, I'm not saying Luis Perez shined, but if you look at Ryan Mallett, I will tell you right now, came out and was slinging. Dude was ready to play. Even though he's 32 years old and had been coaching high school football for a duration, he came out to play. He was ready to go. He obviously came out and made his presence saying, you know what? I'm back. All 6'7" of me is out there, and I'm going to be gunslinging this. And I mean, he had the best highlight of the weekend, in my opinion, that beautiful 63-yard pass to Darnell Holland. It was gorgeous. It was right in his lap. Holland almost screwed it up at the goal line too.
It was beautiful. Seeing someone of that size throw a ball like that, it was kind of like vintage Roethlisberger.
Yeah, no kidding.
I was like, oh, this is some good friggin' football, man. I'm so happy. It works out perfectly that this league is starting up like as FCS is winding down. So you could just go. It's the dream I had with the XFL when it popped up. It's like you go from the NFL postseason. You got college football playoffs. You got the NFL. Then you would have the XFL, and then you would have like beautiful Canadian football throughout the summer. It's nonstop football all year.
That is a goal of mine as well.
It's good football. Like there was, especially the running backs early in these leagues. It's good. They're going to be fun to watch. And I wouldn't even ever say, you would say defensive football. I would also say defensive football. And for a lot of hardcore football guys, that's kind of what you want to see. Right. It's still like it's still super fun to watch. And you can appreciate good running backs in some opinion, sometimes my opinions, a little bit more in this style of offense early on. The running backs shine, and I love to see running backs get their time because receivers will get it. There will be offensive huge games where receivers will just stand out, and those games will be super fun and amazing to watch. But defensive slugfests are also super fun.
That seems to be not as of light in a modern day football setting. One that, we want to see the highlights. We want to see the scores. Defense isn't really always there. Yeah, the big hits are, but big hits are also they're shied away from now. And obviously the health concerns with those, you got to worry about that. I love the clean hits, which, by the way, the opening games, at least on Thursday night, a lot of clean hits, a lot of guys, especially on the kickoffs. I was amazed at how clean some of these guys were with doing proper tackling technique. Great job for those that are watching at home with their children. If they were watching this football game, be like, see that, son? That's how you tackle. Or see that, my daughter, that's how you tackle, which is football can be played by anyone. So just as a heads up.
But good, clean. Yeah. Like big hits, as long as they're clean. I had this discussion with someone 2 weeks ago. Clean, like big hits are a part of football. Yeah. As long as they're clean, big hits have a place in football. It's like fights in hockey. You can't take this aspect of the game out. It becomes a different game at some point.
True.
And I like that the spring league, like the players, I was very excited because you see it a lot with college players that they don't really know how to tackle that well at this point. So I'm very happy to see these guys who have developed. They're developing more in the spring league. They're showing good form, and I hope honestly, I hope it gets them a spot on like an NFL team. That's
right. Well, hey, they're saying, scouts are supposed to be at this. NFL scouts know what the spring league is at this point. There's CFL scouts too, by the way. That's the primary bread and butter of the spring league. Again, for those that are first joining, this is your first experience. The spring league primarily goes for CFL, NFL scouts. That is their main bread and butter. Obviously other leagues can look at them. The arena leagues in their own right, pick up guys left and right that we've seen, and arena guys come to the TSL at times too. So, it's back and forth, but the NFL, CFL, those are the main ones. They're the main moneymakers, the guys that want to go and get legitimate contracts. That's what they're looking to, and that's what they advertise for. And you know what? I mean, they have the pedigree, obviously, on their website. So they've shown that they can at least get some film out there, and hopefully as the league grows, it gets better with that and it gets more recognition. I mean, for crying out loud, today, I don't know if they paid Brandon Marshall or if he joined in on his own will. He hasn't been playing in a little bit, but Brandon Marshall, former linebacker, not the receiver, former linebacker for the Denver Broncos, is going to be joining the Generals at least starting this week. I don't know if he will, it's not confirmed if he'll play this week too, but that's a big name get for going on to Fox. So, Ryan Mount was already one, and now you're adding basically a second biggest name to that same roster. That's good for TV. And that's what kind of you're looking at if you're wanting to build that TV side. And looking at week 2, let's get into that while we're at it. So week 1, a lot of running back, at least a lot of running backs standing out. Passing game is going to be rough. We're seeing week 2. You imagine you're going to have a second week of practice under your belt, and you should be able to hopefully catch up with defenses a little bit. I mean, like I said with Brian Willis, you hope to God his receivers have caught up, because there were times they should have been keeping up even better with the Conquerors.
I think they could have a breakout week, either this week or week 3. I think that's a team that's going to come out and shock some people.
They were close. I would love to see the turnover belt pulled out more. That construction belt was amazing on the broadcast. I more goofy stuff like that for a league like this. Like, they're taking a lot of XFL type of things. Like, even with the sideline broadcast, like listening to the coaches talk, listening to the players on the field, you can hear the reviews. It's trying a lot of those pieces that were working last year.
Hey, Fox is smart. They know what works. Yeah. They know it works.
They see what's going on, and they know they can probably get them for a better rate as more of a prove it anyway. So it's just like it's like a cautiously optimistic choice to put on your television set. So week 2 is going to be coming up here, and you're going to get some more games. So in the Northern Division, here's how they're going to lay out for the matchups. Northern side, the Conquerors, Kevin Anderson being the star that he was there that for last week, he's going to be playing his team, that is, against the Alphas. So Jerry Glanville will be taking on good old Peter Voss's team out there in Indianapolis for the first contest in the North. The second one will be Aviators taking on the Linemen. So Aviators really need to get off the mat. They finished pretty sluggish in that first one. Meanwhile, the Linemen kind of, as we're talking, scorned a little bit. Missed opportunities was the name of the game in their first contest there. Jim, what do you see from these matchups? I know, again, it's early. It's hard. It's the parity of these are beautiful, but I mean, maybe there's some consistency we can find, right?
I like to see if the Conquerors can kind of keep up their form and still kind of look as good on offense as they did. See if they can keep that cleanliness going and still have a really high-powered game going in. And I'm excited to see the linemen. I was alluding to it a little earlier, the missed opportunities that you were saying. If they can connect on these missed opportunities, if the receivers and the quarterback kind of like connect at that level you want them to, that team is going to be really good. And I think against the Aviators, who kind of did end last week a little sluggish, if they don't come out really good, they don't come out motivated, that could be a potential blowout. That's a worry I might have if I was them.
Yeah, I'd be a little on edge, if I will. Maybe you're hoping there for the Aviators, like I said, or at least Terry Shea for the Aviators. That's the head coach. Hoping to get a little bit more out of his roster. This is the same roster, by the way, or the same team he coached last year. But of course, as we know, turnover is a little bit more common with these teams. The Generals, really, if we're being honest, are the one team that got most of their offensive pieces back. Sans Brian Scott, although Mallett's wearing that number 10 from last year, so maybe some of that Scott energy is transitioning over to him since he's playing. Looking at the schedule here on the south side, geez, it sounds like I'm talking about like Chicago or New York or something like that. Looking at this, the Sea Lions are going to be trying to get off to a fast start, or actually a better start than they did, or at least try and get a cleaner start than they did when they played the Blues. They'll be playing the Generals this time, who edged out their win last week over the Jousters. The Jousters, meanwhile, not 100% sure who will start at QB. I mean, Perez started, but then you had Drew Anderson play and looked much better. They're going to be having the Blues come in, so they'll have to deal with DeAndre Francois, Deshaun Waller, and company as well. Looking at these week 2 matchups, Jim, I'm going to say one thing. I want to see how much better Mallett can get, because, I mean, the Generals look again like they could be the champions like they were last season with how well put together they are. Primarily in that matchup too, though, the Sea Lions, again, DeAndre Johnson, I want to see him at least have a full game under his belt. And I feel like they have a roster that could be threatening. I mean, they played the Blues pretty tough in a defensive contest. I wouldn't be surprised, to start this off if the Generals maybe got upset, because even they had a close contest with the Jousters, and that was, back and forth with QB swaps throughout that contest.
Yeah, the Jousters. Oh, sorry, the Generals,
yes,
and the Sea Lions game. I'm I'm thinking that one can probably be close. DeAndre Johnson, I want to see him be explosive. That's what I want to see. I want to see him just go nuts, go crazy with it, and just ball out. But I'm lockstep with you on the Generals as a potential repeat. They look just as good as they did last year, and with them not being like one of the few teams that kept a lot of the same roster, you have that cohesion, which I think is people. It's extremely helpful for a league like this. The cohesion is a huge factor.
Yes.
The Jousters, I'm excited. I'm excited for him. I want my boy Perez. I want him to shine. That's what I want in that game. I want to see, like, I know he didn't look as good week 1, but I love the guy. I've loved him since week 1 of the XFL. I've been calling for him. He's a great dude, and I want him to succeed so hard.
That little the little documentary type of short piece they did on his bowling prowess. Excellent job that Fox did on that. You know, I'm hoping that they do more of these like that too as the season goes on, because it was kind of weird. Like that whole first week, they were repeating the exact same what is the spring league? I'm like, okay, I've seen this like 3 times. You got anything else? Oh, we got the Luis Perez bowling piece. I'm like, I mean, I love the story of Luis Perez going from bowler to, you know, success at the quarterback position with little experience in watching YouTube videos. But I can only watch that so much if I'm watching all the games.
Yeah, I can only hear that same thing like so many times.
And that goes in the promotion side of Fox. But you know what? I'm with Perez, you know, I love the pairing with Kevin Gilbride. I do hope they give him one more shot, as much as I know the spring league gets known to give where you're switching QBs out to give them some film. I mean, but credit, like, for example, Kevin Anderson with the Conquerors, Brandon Silvers is on that team and he didn't touch the field last contest. So it's not guaranteed. You know, Perez, I'm hoping with just that fact that it was a first week, they give him one more shot. He gets one more chance to try and get back in there, you know, and it's not like they don't have weapons or anything. I mean, if we're being honest, like the Jousters, for example, Donnie Ernsberger was excellent in the red zone for them in that contest. I mean, dude had 2 TDs, had plenty of great film, was a big body, you know, a name for himself. They got guys that can get the rock. You just got to get a little more consistency. And that's, as we're talking, better chemistry as the weeks go on.
I'm always going to be rooting for the XFL guys. It's probably just at my heart. I also, if DeAndre Francois, if his like thumb and hand is perfectly fine, I'm excited to see him ball out. I liked watching him a lot at FSU, and he's someone who I believe had so much potential in college, and it was ruined by how mishandled FSU was from the like the beginning of the Taggart era and kind of onwards.
Yeah, I bet a Mr. Josh Davis would have plenty to say on the FSU era with DeAndre Francois, which one thing's for certain, I know that man there is a massive fan of DeAndre as well as any FSU player. Of course, it's his main squeeze. So I know he's at least rooting for him. And something I noticed with at least Francois and some of these running quarterbacks, you know, and I know you and I have watched some FCF, you know, or at least have watched FCF games. You know, Francois in the FCF was more kind of pushed towards run the ball when you can. I noticed in the first contest, you know, with film, you want to see your pocket presence. So a lot of times I was watching him and I'm going, run, you have the space. And he would stay in the pocket as long as he could and you'd throw it away. You know, I'm wondering if, you know, you just see guys loosen up with this. And it's more like let's just use our athletic ability and just say, screw it to the pocket presence. Because, I mean, at this point, film sometimes is just about pure athleticism and showing that you got what it takes.
Yep. I agree 100% with that. Just get footage of you kind of like looking good. That's what you need. You only have, I mean, I'm assuming they're filming like off game time as well. They're like, they have scouts going to the practices and stuff like that. But your game film, you only have like 6 weeks. Like you don't have a ton of time to do it.
Right. And you're not even guaranteed that you're going to be in a playoff match. You know, it's only going to be the top 2 of each division, then taking on the champion between the 2 divisions. So might as well get it in while you can, especially if you realize your team's going south. You know, hopefully you're able to get what you can at any given point while the scouts are around here. Jim, as we wrap things up on our preview here, let's see. We got to make some picks.
Yep.
You know, let's got to make some picks, you know. I mean, you do the prop bet type, top prop bet type of stuff on the side, so you're obviously expertised at making a pick or two or a wager. I'm not going to make a wager here. If I did, I'm a terrible betting man. Just being honest on this, but let's make some picks anyway, just out of fun. I know it's not as fun, but to me, it's fun. Week 2. So let's do the North. Conquerors versus Alphas and Aviators versus Linemen. We'll go in that order in that order respectively. Who do you have for both these contests? And if you want to iterate, why do you got them?
I've got the Conquerors over the Aviators because I don't believe I think the Aviators need
Alphas,
at least
my friend.
Oh, sorry, Alphas. Yeah.
That's okay. I went a little fast, but Conquerors, Alphas, Aviators, Linemen.
Sorry, I still like the Conquerors versus the Alphas. I know I think that's going to be one of the best games of the week. But I think the Conquerors, if they can put it together, I think they're one of the more dangerous teams, and I like them here in a close one. I like this to be a very close game. This was a tough one. Aviators, excuse me. Aviators versus they're playing. Who are they up against?
Aviators will be playing the Linemen, my friend.
That's right. Aviators versus Linemen. I like the Linemen. I think the Aviators need one more week to kind of get things gelling, to feel it. And I think the Linemen, as I was saying earlier, the Linemen still need the Linemen have this little bit that they need. The Aviators are still a little bit more of a ways from becoming kind of a full gelled team. And I just, as a personal standpoint, I can't root for them ever since they changed their name from the Hughes to the Aviators.
I was waiting if someone bring that up.
They're dead to me. That was my favorite team. They're dead to me after that. So I can't root for them.
Oh my gosh. The reference back to Hugh Hefner then was excellent, but they had to go with the generic pick, and they kept the same logo. You're not the first one. I know plenty of people that have a gripe with that for those listening in, they used to be called the Hughes, and people like that name because it was kind of a cheeky nod towards the man himself when they were going to play in Las Vegas, mind you, at that time. But of course, they went with the much more approachable name, and I'm not letting go of that. Either. I can't. I see it as the Hughes as well. Rest in peace to that team name. I'm going to do this here. I'll tell you what, my picks for the week here. I'm going to go with the Alphas. Reason being, that line was stout. I felt like, for example, when the contest week 1, where it was Conquerors Linemen, the Linemen had a lot of missed opportunities. I felt the Conquerors had defensive lapses that just weren't taken care of, or at least were not exploited as well. I think the Alphas bully the Conquerors defense here, and I think that you're going to see Brian Burt and as well as Morgan there, Blake Morgan I'm mentioning, will be able to get, I don't know if they'll do 130 yards each and dominate, but I see one of them possibly cracking the century mark. And my key is, let's see a little, what else do you get out of either Brian Lewerk or Vad Lee? Vad Lee, again, was more on his legs, less in the air. They relied on the ground game. Let's see if they can open it up, but I think it's going to be one of the best matchups of the week. Like you're talking, it's going to be a close one. Alphas, though, maybe by a field goal if we're lucky, get one of those clutch time ones right at the end. Meanwhile, though, for my second game, you know what? I'm going to go with the Linemen here. The Alphas, I think, need a little more tuning up. I don't know if maybe 1 week will do wonders, but I felt like Brian Willis was so frustrated last week, just missing on some marks, and how close that team was with the talent they have and the opportunities their defense presented them when given the chance. I think they'll capitalize. They'll go 1-1. You'll see the Aviators, or the former Hughes, probably take the loss and try and find their way there. Moving to the South as we wrap things up, doing picks here. Jim, Sea Lions Generals will be that first contest. Blues Jousters the second. Who you got for both and why?
I can't get off the Generals train until they disappoint me. They look so strong, and I love the Sea Lions. They're a good team, but I can't. They're like any quote unquote. They're like the biggest dynasty of this league so far. I guess the Generals. Right. Until they let me down, I'm going to keep backing them. They're going to win this game. Like it's going to be. I'm assuming it's probably going to be by a touchdown, maybe more. maybe like by 10 points, but they're going to win. The Generals are going to win. It's what they do.
That when I'm sorry, I just
Until
true,
the Brian Scott energy wears off, I'm going to on this team.
Well, as long as that 10 jersey's out there in some capacity on someone's back, that energy is going to be staying out there. Am I right?
Exactly.
And I think that's, for me at least, I'm taking the Generals in this. Although the Sea Lions, like I said, if you're leaning on Darius Galloway and the way that he was completely overshadowed last week, I think just by the presence of the Alphas dual back threats, as well as that they, Deshaun Waller on the opposite side was tearing it up too. I think you see maybe DeAndre Johnson or, Nick Fitzgerald, by the way, if one of those two finally open it up, there's some possibility, that the FCF squad of the TSL will figure it out if they get the chance. But man, the Generals just got too much going for them right now.
I will be rooting for the Sea Lions, but I think the Generals are going to win this because any team that has my boy Nick Fitz on it is
one of the best post-game partiers you'll ever see on this planet.
That's a team I get behind.
Man. The St. Louis Battlehawks are the reason that I was first ever visited St. Louis and why I want to go back badly just to visit the city, because I like St. Louis after I went there. Good memories.
I wish I could have gone. I wish I could have gone so bad.
Oh, I don't mean to pile on. I was at the home opener. Man,
I at least got to go to a game. I went to a couple of the LA games.
Oh yeah, of course.
When I was out there. It was fun. Those games were fun.
Mm-hmm. Hey, XFL was a party, man. And I'm hoping the TSL becomes more of a party as we go along. Last matchup of the day, Blues Jousters. One team looking to stand defeated, the other looking to come off a close loss. Who you got?
This is a tough one to pick. I lean Jousters, but I can't really explain why. These teams are very similar to me in a competitive way. Like I feel like it's going to be a close matchup, maybe like a 1 to 2 point game, even like one of those weird sort of scores you might see, like a 19 to 23, but that's like a 4 point game, or like a 2. Yeah, it's going to be weird. It's going to be a weird game. It's going to be interesting, but give me the Jousters by a hair.
Ooh, okay. I get what you're saying here. You know what? I don't know if I can pick the Jousters here. That's a tough one for me. I think this is where we'll split for this. I'm gonna have to go with the Blues. I think you're gonna see Francois have another week of solid production, get a little more chemistry, of course, with his side there, and also again Deshaun Waller. Man, I was so impressed. If I was more impressed with Darius Galloway week 1 in that contest, but Waller himself was not being talked about enough, and the man tore it apart as well. Do not sleep on Deshaun Waller. He will have a chance to blow it up once more for the Blues in that contest, and that's week 2, which is coming up here soon enough. We're recording beforehand, but I mean, I'm telling you, week 1 was nice. It's nice to have spring football, at the very least. As much as we were talking at the beginning about like what the direction of this league is, it's providing football.
It's still fun, and I'm still watching the games. Like I'm not turning my eyes away. Like what am I going to watch? I'm not going to watch baseball or basketball. There's football on. There's football.
Oh God, do I need to watch World Series of Poker? Is that a sport? What? I'm amazed. I know. I'm good. We both know it's football. Oh, yeah. Football's the greatest sport in the world. I'll always say that on these shows. Never gonna let that one go.
Yep.
Never gonna let that one go. Jim, thanks for joining me today. Really appreciate it, man. I'm hoping we can get this as a little more routine here as we're talking these leagues, and hopefully the XFL does return. I hope it does, as we said at the beginning. Not as much as I am trying to look at the writing on the wall. I hope for optimism. Fingers crossed once again. Jim, where can we find you, bud? And what all content is the garage coming up? Is Unwrap coming up? Like what can we expect from you in the coming future here?
You can find me almost everywhere on the internet. XFL Jim on YouTube, at XFL Jim on Twitter, at XFL Jim on Instagram, TikTok. I do friggin' daily TikToks. Life advice from my hot tub that I have. So I give life advice every day. That just comes to me.
Okay.
I do the Gymnasium podcast every Sunday at 8 p.m. Central Time. That comes out every Monday. And then I do weekday gambling videos for the degenerates out there on a site called Better Than Vegas. So look up XFL Jim on Better Than Vegas. It's like YouTube for sports betting, and the guys there are all great. It's a bunch of like fun, interesting sports handicap. It's super fun. Unwrapped Sports. What I do with them is I jump on some shows with a bunch of people, and then I do a podcast every Thursday. I think we actually might be recording even like I might be doing it right after this one. I don't remember.
Oh, wow.
Every Thursday. It's called the Degenerates Corner with this gentleman Garrett from Iowa. It's fun. It's just we talk about like sports, we talk about degeneracy, we talk about like anything going on in our lives. It's a fun time.
If that sounds familiar to people, that is the guy that is one of the two members of the People's XFL show. That is why that strikes a chord. I know exactly who Garrett from Iowa is. You know, the guy with the sport coat and the cigar with sunglasses every episode. You can't miss it. You can't miss it. Just like how you with the kind of with the coward like paradise type of vacation T-shirt. Tropical
T-shirt. Bringing Hawaiian shirts back. They get a bad rep from a lot of people, and I don't like it. Hawaiian shirts need a comeback.
You're not the only one. My brother, he has one that's is gorgeous, like Birds of Paradise is the one. It's like a light bluish with those flowers. That's that's one of his favorite ones to wear. I get it. It's not a bad look. Might look into myself, and I'm going to be looking into your life advice because sometimes I need to get a different perspective from someone else, if you know I will. And I need to get on TikTok more. I only got 3 videos. Jim, thank you for joining on the show. Really appreciate it, man. Looking forward to more football, and keep on being awesome and providing us with great stuff from the garage.
Hell yeah. Have me on anytime.
The Gridiron Gallery podcast. New episodes every Friday on your favorite podcast platforms, YouTube, and premiering first, as always, at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, only on unhingedsn.com.